Hello, and welcome to Postcards from a Soul and Her Human. I'm the human, Gina. Is a really warm and kind of balmy day here in Ohio, and I've been trying to spend as much time outside as I can because I know we don't have a lot of these days left. So I'm sitting out back in my home, just kind of listening to the breeze and assessing where I am really in this whole process. And I think I've come to think of myself as kind of these recordings or these sessions as me reporting on the process that I'm going through. Since the introspective phase that I went through, which was brought on by the end of my marriage, which of course started this whole thing into motion, the podcast and the journaling and the writing, the articles, the book, everything. And so I've come to think of it as kind of reporting on what's going on and how I'm doing as a subject or a test subject or in this experiment that we're all in and reporting on my experiences as a way to um, bring some cohesiveness or fluidity into the chaos that we live in every day. And so today was a good example. I wasn't feeling my best. I'm feeling a little bit almost like under the weather, but I know it's not a physical thing. It's an energetic thing. And I've been going through a lot of ups and downs with my energy. My last episode was about the changes in my energy, and most days I feel pretty good, but I still have days where I am pretty well drained and left feeling almost ill. And this is one of those days. I woke up really tired. I slept way longer than normal. And, I just have this overall feeling of down, just being down, like everything ebbs and flows. Our breath ebbs and flows in our body. The ocean ebbs and flows. The moon phases can be, called the same thing. And it's just the breath of life. It's the breath of living, and it ebbs and it flows. So it's never at one level all the time. So one of the things I've had to learn in the changes that I've been going through is to expect these ebbs in my energy, and not just my energy but my emotions too. So I often think, wow, I went through all of this healing. I should be pretty good. I should never have to heal again. That's a hopeful statement, but I think overall there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, I don't look at healing or I don't look at processing my feelings the same way as I did before, where before all this, I would work to suppress and to not allow my feelings to become disruptive to my life and or to my goals or my focus or whatever. And I would, go through this process of avoiding them, like think most of us do, and we don't realize how um, what a negative impact it can have on our health. And I know I've talked about this many times in different from different approaches, but I wanted to kind of talk about that uh, a little bit more, and maybe to a much grander scale because of what I'm going through right now. I'm feeling this low energy or this ebb in my energy. And because of it, I'm not really doing much today. I've just kind of been wandering around my home. And, I normally don't turn the TV on during the day. I'm retired over the last, I think I said the last 3 months. It's actually the last 4 months. And I try really hard not to turn on the TV and vegetate too much unless it's later in the evening, just so I can, feel a sense of, accomplishment during the day that no matter what I do, I didn't sit around. So I ended up turning on the TV and watching a movie in the middle of the late morning, and that just is a testament of how kind of low I'm feeling. And so I'm sitting in my backyard thinking about just my life overall, and kind of I always kind of think of the time that I'm in now as kind of a transitional period. I'm not in my old world or old life anymore, but I'm not in my new one yet either. I feel like I'm in a building phase that the things I'm working on, including this podcast, my articles, my mindset, my heart set, my wellness routine, which keeps evolving, are kind of the space that I'm in is a transitional one. So I'm trying to remember that when I start to feel like there's not much going on, and should I be doing more, and that nasty feeling that our ego injects into our body, that we're not doing enough, so we should feel bad about that. And I catch myself still a victim of that, where I'm thinking, should I be doing more? Do I have too much time on my hands after a lifetime of working like nonstop? uh, and I just turned 60 last week, and I'm thinking to myself, a lot of people retire at this time. It's not necessarily early. And why do I feel like I need to produce? It's really something I have to keep an eye on. So anyway, um, I'm kind of in this down period, and I'm thinking about things, and I find myself, and this is a process that I'm writing about right now. So it's interesting that I'm having kind of a day of this, is I'm writing about our emotions and about how they are a tool, like a very important tool to keeping our body, our energy clear of baggage. I think that's the term most people are familiar with, emotional baggage. So these are experiences, or the effect of experiences, that we carry with us as either a badge of honor or a way to remain in a certain low energy vibration. So if we feel shame, so we don't have to express ourselves. We feel pain, so we don't have to face ourselves. We feel of like a victim, so we don't have to defend ourselves. I mean, there's a myriad of things that we feel that are considered negative, that we carry in order to, we use them as shields. We use them as reasons that we are not more proactive in our lives, or that we um, give in to temptation or bad decisions or bad behavior, whatever. And this baggage that we carry around accumulates through our lives and becomes real weight in our bodies, and it grounds us, and not in a good way. It keeps us from soaring or elevating. And I've thought about this a lot, and I've talked about this a lot. I've written about this a lot. It's kind of the thread that goes through all of it, because it's the one tool that we have that we can really clean the whole thing. We can really empty every closet. We can really erase the negative impact of our experiences on our bodies and our energy and our hearts. And we can really prepare ourselves for the universe to fill this new space, this clean, energized space that we're creating by dumping this baggage. It allows the universe to come in and fill it with abundance. And it's not something you really can imagine unless you go through it, because you're so invested. We are so invested in holding on to what we perceive as a shield or shields, or pain becomes a barrier to us being able to experience real joy in our lives, because we hold on to so much pain. The universe just keeps bringing us more. This is the magnetism of our thoughts, of our intentions. And if our thoughts and intentions are subconscious and are toxic, our lives just fill up with it. And it's shown to us in every part of our life, through our relationships, through the way we interact with other people, through our reactions or responses to situations or circumstances or opportunities or whatever might come into our lives. It's rare in this heavy energy that we're laden down with this baggage, that we can look at an opportunity as as a chance to grow. So an example would be that, when you're in this low energy and you're full of this toxic baggage, you might get an opportunity in your job for a promotion, but it's in a new department, and I don't want to go to that department. I like my job here. What do I want to go there for? I don't know anything about that. This is not good. I don't want this. and we're not able to see it as an opportunity because we're so deeply like invested in what keeps us stuck. So, another example would be a move, that your job wants to move you to, or your boyfriend or girlfriend wants to move to this new location, and all you can think about is the negative reasons why you don't want to do it. It's disruptive. I have to leave my job. I have my dog groomer I like, my doctor is a friend, whatever. All the things that we conjure up in order not to have to take that chance and to possibly find something that is good for us, because we're just not really able to connect with what's good for us because we're so invested in what's bad in our lives. So, that this is just what the baggage does to us. It keeps us from being able to see the opportunities of life and to really connect with the energy that brings us these blessings and this abundance. So when we clear out all this space, we open it up, and abundance is now in our atmosphere. It's in our orbit, and it becomes part of our lives. And we're no longer in that low grade energy that gathers and carries all that weight. So I've talked about this at length before. I won't go back into it again, but my point one, I've been in this new abundant energy for a while now, and I'm really kind of experimenting with it, and I guess I just expected I wouldn't feel bad again, and I know that was probably a naive thought, and it wasn't anything I really thought much about, but I just kind of figured, I feel good. I got this great base now. I got rid of all that toxicity in my life. I left this old relationship, this old job. Um, I've ended, other relationships, so I can feel this cleansing, energy. So I can feel like I'm ready for this abundance. And, I'm here to report from the front lines that you still feel that that ebb. And one of the things that I'm identifying as a low grade feeling is melancholy. And this surprised me just a little bit because melancholy is missing, I believe, missing something from your past that you either perceived as joyful, maybe it wasn't, or actually was, and it's just gone now. Really, I'm not really sure how big the distinction is, but in my case, I'm feeling melancholy about my relationship with the man that I was married to, my ex-husband, the one that I've talk about at length, the one who caused my energetic break, and who I describe as an emotional vampire. So, I'm always a little surprised when I have feelings about him or about our time together that still come up even after all of this cleansing and all the letting go of this weight. And what I'm realizing, and this is an interesting thing, is, he is. I've said this before, somebody I will always cherish. And I think the best way I can probably illustrate this to you, the listener, and to somebody who hasn't experienced being devastated by somebody and still loving them, even after you left them. I'm not talking about the toxic love that keeps you there. I'm talking about the appreciation that I feel for him for bringing me to the breaking point and causing me to surrender within. So the way I kind of distinguish that for my own use, and actually when I talk to other people, is I refer to the man that I love and that I appreciate as his higher self, as the version of him that is fully formed. And this is someone, or a spirit, or however you want to describe them, that I have a close connection with, uh, the higher self of my ex-husband. And I also have a connection with my daughter's higher self, the higher self of my future soulmate, and my higher self, me. And these are just basically the highest evolutionary form of us in this human incarnation. So, the higher self, my higher self, is me without any baggage, with with all the insight that I'm yet to gather in my life, with all of um, the wisdom that I'm still gathering. Well, I'm sorry, with all the wisdom that I'm still gathering. So the highest version or the best version of me is my higher self. And we all have a better or higher version of ourselves. So when I say that I love this man and that I appreciate him, I'm saying that I love and appreciate his higher self, because it's probably not fair for me to say that about the 3D version of him, which is the toxic man, the man who I think I've referred to him as a friend before, and I think I want to correct that just for my own benefit. I don't think anybody ever noticed that I said that. I refer to him as a friend. I don't think that's 100% accurate, because the 3D version of him is not a good person to be in my life because of his lack of awareness and his inability to awaken from his um from his lowest vibrational self. And I don't know who or how he is now. I'm not commenting on that now. I'm just talking about the person that I left when I left him. When in that trauma that I left him, the man who wouldn't leave my home because he just didn't want to leave even though he knew I was suffering, that guy. So, um I very much appreciate and very deeply love his higher self, which is the version of him that carried out this contract, the one who drove the vehicle of the 3D him, and did all the things that were necessary to satisfy our soul contract, which was something that we agreed on before this lifetime, that we would come together, have this toxic relationship, and I would be broken and go inward, and the rest. And he's still supposed to do that, because in order for this contract to be fully satisfied, he has to have the same experience, although I haven't seen that happen yet. And I'm not counting on it. It's not in my thoughts anymore. But what is still in my energy is this kind of so I think I wanted to make that distinction, because I don't want people thinking that this person's in my life now, because he's not. And I may have made that comment and made you think that. So I want to be clear that he's not in my life. And I think what's brought on these feelings of melancholy is I recently, because we still, we were in business for 12 years. We're no longer in business as of the end of May, not the end of June. I left my business, and I'm still technically part of the business until a certain period of time runs out, and then I'll be completely no longer part of the business. But there's still some ties there. 12 years in business together, it's not easy to you just don't unsnap it or unzip it and it's done. It takes a little while. So during this last several months that I've been retired from my business, we've had communication, and some of it's been personal, and I've just been kind of allowing it to happen, even though my energy wants to be completely free of that old energy. So recently I made it clear that I didn't want any more personal contact, because I want to leave this part of my life, this toxic relationship. Whether I learned from it or not, it still was a toxic relationship. So me hanging around is not going to be good for me. So I made it clear to my ex-husband that I no longer wanted a personal connection with him. And I just wanted to get through the business, parts. And when that was done, I wanted to put this whole chapter of my life, this whole chapter of my world behind me. Um, and I did that, and it was a very brief thing that I did. It took only a couple of moments, but I knew when I did it that I severed something, like the last something that was between us, the last personal something that was between us. So, you have to keep in mind that this man is also a soulmate of mine. He is a karmic soulmate. So I was meant to go through this toxic experience with him in order to get where I am now. So I won't dredge all that up again for anyone who's heard me speak about him before. But when I did this a few days ago, actually it was on my birthday, I did it last week. I just felt really kind of liberated again. Like I didn't think I could still feel liberated, but it still felt like I was breaking another bond between us, and freeing myself, maybe the last bit. And the immediate feeling I had was of liberation. I'm feeling, oh my God, I don't have to have this personal connection anymore. I can just move on, be done with this, put it in my past, like we all want to do when we leave a bad situation. And I woke up this morning, actually started yesterday, feeling this melancholy, this really strange kind of like, um, I don't know. I guess I could probably look up the meaning of melancholy, but it's more of a missing of something from the past is like the broad uh, definition, and it's not missing the relationship. Trust me on that. It's not missing the person because I honestly, if I had a gun held to my head, I could say without any hesitation that I don't want to see or speak to this person again. But there's a part of me, and this is maybe my higher self, who has this deep affection for his higher self. And I think putting it that way might help you understand what I'm talking about because this man did me a solid. I mean, he carried out a very difficult mission. He is, this, he did this thing for me. And it's hard to kind of like discount that. So, when I think about him, and now that I've made this kind of last attempt to sever anything personal between us, which was very minor at this point, it was only on very, very occasionally. But I did it as a way to kind of like purposely, cut that last of that cord, which was a very thick rope, this connection between us. And the feelings of melancholy kind of came over me kind of suddenly, and I'm thinking, what the frig is this? What I realize is that these feelings of melancholy are laced with this deep compassion for this man, and I think that this, if I look at the compassion, the melancholy makes sense because the last thing I want to do is hurt anybody's feelings or cause anybody pain. The truth of the matter is, if he's due to go through pain or whatever due to his actions or lack of action or what happened to cause the end of our relationship, it's none of my business. But the melancholy is more of a compassion. It's and I had this once before, several months ago, that kind of a feeling of leaving him behind, like I'm leaving him and I'm going on without him, and that's how deep the soulmate connection is. It has nothing to do with wanting to be with him or wanting to fix things with him. God, no. No, 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 no. It's not that at all. It's just this deep compassionate, this empathy for him as a soul. And I think this is my soul to his soul. It's a soul to soul thing. It's not a human to human thing because um, I don't really think about that much anymore. I think about his soul though, and the part that agreed. That's the part of him that agreed to do this thing with me. And this human was just kind of the vehicle to do it, and of course like mine was too. So now that I have this great connection with my higher self or my soul, I see the damage that's been done, and I feel for him, and I know that he, in his right mind or in his right energy, he would have never let this happen. So I'm feeling this like, really deep empathy and compassion for him, and I was really surprised to have it end in tears. I mean, like heavy tears. And this is funny because this tied me, and this is what brought me to the microphone today, which normally I think I'd wait another week or so. Um, this brought me to this feeling, this understanding, and it really tied into the article I'm writing right now about the power of emotions, which I'm going through it now. So I figured I'd report on it real time, and then I'll, of course, write about it, finish writing about it. The article is probably 80% done. But it's funny, I noticed this process, and this is why I know that what I'm writing and speaking is so deeply connected to my energy, which is my soul. It's not something I think about and do, it's something I feel. It's almost like an urging or a draw to this microphone. It's not a conscious decision, and I'm just commenting on how interesting it is that when I do record, I don't always feel really good. This is the second time I've done this where I really didn't feel good at all, and I thought, I don't want to get on the microphone. I don't want to be negative or have something come out of my mouth that isn't uplifting. And then I'm like, wait a minute, what the hell am I talking about? That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to report on, from the front lines. This has nothing to do with, you know, good or bad. It is what it is. So I think my ability to wrap it in something conscientious is maybe helpful because I can see the bigger picture very easily. It's not a difficulty anymore, where of course at one time it was. I can see that him as a human is suffering, whether he admits it to himself or not. his connection to me was as important to him as mine was to him. So, I mean, we're both soulmates, not just me. So the fact that he's trapped in this low vibrational energy doesn't save him from having to deal with negative impact. Whether he deals with it consciously or not, it affects him one way or another. And I've talked about this at length that, if we bury our feelings or we don't work to harvest them and, pull them out by the roots, we suffer in one way or another. We suffer with our energy, with our health, with our emotional state. It manifests in many, many ways, but our health, suffers. We can easily see our health suffering. We're not sleeping. We don't eat right. We don't do things that are good for our body. We overindulge, or all the other millions of things that I've talked about, bad behavior, that we do think we punish ourselves without realizing we're punishing ourselves. And, so I know that there's an impact to the human him, whether he realizes it or not, or wants to deal with it. So that's where my empathy comes in, because I know that that last severing of our emotional connection is having a negative impact on him, whether he deals with it or not, because it's having one on me, and I'm the one dealing with all of my feelings. So I guess what I'm saying is I expected to kind of have this fleeting moment where I'm like, you know, yeah, I felt a little melancholy. Yeah, but it's gone and I'm good. Let's keep going. And I think I expected that to be the case, but that's not what happened. And it's interesting because it's tying exactly into what I'm talking about in this article, how we can use, if we choose to, or if we're led to use our emotions as a tool to clean house, to pull the energetic low vibrational weight out of our body. And I think I've mentioned this once or twice briefly in a previous podcast, but I want to get into it in more detail because it's so important. And it's something that, if we allow to happen, is really the catalyst for us becoming free of the energetic weight or the baggage that we carry. And it's the one tool in our toolbox, our emotional toolbox, that we have that is always accessible. It's not something we have to charge or learn to use or be given access to. It's always in our tool belt. And this is our emotions. And we work so hard to avoid them. We work so hard not to feel anything, so we don't have to have the impact of feeling. So if I feel something from my past that was negative, it's going to make me feel bad, and my emotion is going to be anger or sadness or rage or whatever. And we want to avoid that emotion, so we don't want the feeling. So we avoid it, or we cram it down into our bodies, into our energy. And what I'm noticing is that something I didn't really realize before, even through everything that I've gone through and this processing of my feelings into emotions, is that our heart is a portal. My heart is a portal. I guess I should just say it that way because I can only go from my experience. My heart is a portal, and my ex husband came in through that portal. So I think with anybody, when we have affection for somebody or we love someone, our heart is, of course, engaged. It just is. It's the part of us that loves. So when we allow someone in to our heart, they're in there and they become integrated into our energy. And that integration can either be a positive experience or a negative one, or it can begin positive and end negative. So we have to just be cognizant, or I am becoming cognizant of this because I want to be able to understand how my body and my energy work. And again, we have several bodies, several layers to our body. And again, I didn't do my homework and look at what they are, but we have several layers of our body of energy that radiate around us and through us. And when we experience negativity or pain or even joy and love, all of these bodies are affected. So it stands to reason that when we go through a breakup or a loss, this has to come out. This energy that we allowed in has to come out. And it comes out through the portal of our heart. So it goes into our heart and it has to come out. So I think when we try to avoid our feelings and the emotion that it conjures, we are not allowing this process of elimination, this process of yanking these negative feelings or this baggage out of our body. What we're doing is we're trying to circumvent our heart because we don't want to feel it. And it totally makes sense because we want to avoid going through the pain again. Like, why do I want to revisit or relive all that? I already cried. I already, crying in pain in a reaction to something is not the same as healing, processing and healing from it. They're two different things. They're two different stages. Um, so I think if we understand that, it's easy to understand why we're not free of it when we just mourn it, because we store so much of that negative weight or that the impact of that negative experience in our bodies. We don't realize that we're carrying it around. So I've said this before, we come weighed down by it. So what I'm noticing in this kind of like experiment of my life that I'm using for you guys is, I'm blow by blow of what's going on with me during, this post healing phase is I'm still going through this to some degree. So this melancholy is in my body and I'm like, oh, I feel compassion and I feel empathy. Oh, and then all of a sudden I start to feel this feeling well up into my chest. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, what the hell is this? Is this a feeling? What is this feeling? And this feeling wells up to my chest. And of course, now I don't have to even think about it. I just automatically sit down and I give full attention to what's happening. So, of course, when we avoid our feelings, the first thing we do is deflect or detract. We go busy ourselves, or we go take a drink or smoke, or, you know, we go into some other toxic behavior, or we isolate ourselves and we become hermits. We shut out our lives out, whatever we do to save ourselves from feeling. Instead of doing that, which I've learned not to do because I've freed myself from all that weight, is my body like automatically just sits down. I don't even question it. And I just pay attention and I coax and urge myself. I said, okay, I feel something coming up. What is it? What is this feeling of melancholy? What is it really? What's the deeper cause of it? And I realized that it's this deep empathy for this man. And this deep empathy came into my heart. So I'm noticing it stopping at this point. I'm like, okay, I see you, I feel you. It's stopping in my heart and it's sitting there. It's almost like ruminating there, and it's waiting for me to acknowledge it. And until I kind of could put my finger on it, it wasn't going anywhere. And I think it's safe to say, at least from my experience, that this is what happens with our feelings is if we don't allow it this space and this process, we are avoiding our healing. And we do it with fervor and with great intention. And it is the worst thing we can do for ourselves. And this is one of the things that our ego tells us to do to protect us, not understanding that our energy or our soul has got this. Our energy or our soul is doing this cleansing. So it's almost like you have to kind of like flip the switch on your mind and turn it off and say, don't worry, my body is doing a natural process. It's following a natural process of purging. So I'm sitting in this space and this feeling in my heart, and I'm thinking, what is this? I don't feel. This is before I identified it as empathy. I'm thinking, I don't miss him. I don't, maybe I miss the idea of him because honestly, if I would have stayed in the energy I was after the third time I left him when we got married, I probably would have stayed with that man forever. As far as I knew, and of course I didn't understand anything, I loved him, because he was a mirror of the person who I was and the degree that I loved myself. So I think that's probably the best way I can put that. So of course in this new space, I don't miss him in that way. I don't love this man like want to go back kind of love. But I have to admit that I love his higher self. I love the man, the energy, the soul that that gave me the gift that he did. So I'm thinking, okay, it's not that. What the fuck? What is this? And I'm not getting frustrated because I understand this process now. And it is the one thing that for the rest of my remaining life on this earth, I will allow the time and space for, no matter where I am, no matter who I'm with, no matter what I am doing. This is the very most important thing that my body does. This is its natural purging process. So I've learned to get out of her way. It's nothing to do with my mind. This is everything to do with my energy pushing out or purging the low vibrational toxins out of my body. And I believe that the action that I took last week on my birthday of severing the last of our relationship, which is a very, very small, very thin thread. But I knew once I did it that it was like a hatchet in the chest of the human man who is my ex husband. And if you know an emotional vampire or you have any understanding of what this narcissistic behavior is, you'll understand what I mean. I severed the very last personal connection between us. And I did it in a very benign way, but it was incredibly powerful. And I knew when I did it what the impact on him would be. But I knew I had to do it. So this is my empathy, not wanting to hurt him, but my soul saying, gee, this is something that has to be done. His reaction to it is not your business. So, I'm this deeply empathetic person with this incredibly deep compassion that's always been a double-edged sword in my life, which now, of course, is not. It's a handy tool, and it's safely tucked into my holster. Is my compassion and empathy is something that I know how to use now. I don't use it at the detriment of myself, which was, of course, the whole dynamic of my relationship with my ex-husband. Is he relied on my compassion for him as leverage. And I'm not saying he did it on purpose, but that was our dynamic. Is I cared too much. He didn't have to care at all. He could, you know what I'm saying? I'm not going to get back into that again, but that's my point. So my empathy or compassion for him was something he relied on even this late in the game, even nearly 2 years after our divorce. So I know the impact on him, whether he knows it or not, well, whether he recognizes it or not, I know what it is. And I felt it immediately. And it was, of course, my own feeling of liberation was all I cared about because I know I'm not responsible for him anymore. And that was the feeling responsible for him was the whole reason I suffered during that relationship. So, and of course, it had to do more with me than him, but that was the expression of it, which gave him the leverage that he had. That gives a narcissist leverage. Is an overcaring person, an overly compassionate person gives a narcissist leverage. Just hear that. So this feeling came up into my chest, and I'm like, okay, I started to feel tears well up, and I'm started to feel this sadness, and I just burst into tears, and I cried and I cried, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? I'm like, am I still crying over this man? And it took me a little while because I had to sit with it. I was in the house when that happened earlier this morning, and I went out back and I just sat in nature, which is where I go without fail when I need to center myself. And I just kind of let this feeling of sadness linger. And I of course, after a little while, after researching all my possible feelings, of course, I ended up with my compassion and my empathy. And of course, this is this feeling of empathy for this man because I don't want to hurt him. It doesn't matter how much he hurt me. It doesn't matter. I see him from a soul level. Just like it doesn't matter how much my mother hurt me, her violence and her alcoholism, or my father hurt me with his issues, or all the people in my life who I had that experience with. It's the same reason I don't hate any of them. I feel deeply for them because I see them from a soul perspective. I see that they are human beings suffering their demons. And the soul is there to facilitate that till the soul is ready to heal. And then the soul heals the human. That's been my experience. So because his soul has not yet healed the human, I see that human with great compassion. And this is what gives me the perspective that I have, which allows me to love him unconditionally. And I will always, when I get the opportunity to talk about this, talk about unconditional love. When we're able to see each other from a soul perspective, when I see your soul, I see you. I see who you are, and I cannot fault you. And I see him. I see this man for who he is, and I have deep, deep empathy for him. It's not toxic to me anymore because I'm no longer in the relationship, and now I understand how to manage myself around people who are of the same character. Because I know myself now, I can manage myself. I cannot manage anyone else. But I see him and I have deep empathy and compassion for him. And that was the sadness that came up in my heart. But it's so timely because I'm working on this article and I'm having this experience. And this is, of course, no mistake. This is my soul guiding me to the work that I'm doing and the way I'm doing it and the timing that I'm doing it. Because I keep having these experiences that kind of accentuate or exemplify the subject matter I'm working on. And it's kind of cool. It's like I'm my own experiment. I'm my own test subject. And it's the weirdest thing sometimes, but it's also brilliant. Because I'm like that nutty professor who tests the potion on himself and gets a real-time firsthand experience. And reports it. This is what I'm supposed to do. And it's kind of amazing and it's brilliant and it's enlivening, it's energizing, it's when something lights you up, that's your soul. That's your soul. That your soul, you're doing what your soul wants you to do. And that's true in every part of our lives. When you're lit up by something that brings passion to your heart or causes you to feel this heat or this passion, that's your soul coming through you. And that's what you should be doing. Anyway, that's a whole nother subject, but I wanted to talk about this because this experience I had today of understanding what that little tiny last little effort I made to sever our connection, I knew the impact it had on him. I don't know that he'd ever admit it. I don't care. It doesn't matter anymore. I don't have to know. But that empathy for him came up into my heart it was something else I had to let go of because it was so deeply embedded into my body. And I don't want to ever lose my empathy or compassion for any human being on this earth. But I have to put it in perspective in order for me to thrive. I cannot be just an empathetic soul. I have to have balance. So this last act was an act of, I think the right word is escaping me, of course, but it was something I did for him as much as me because it was an act of love. I guess that's the way I can put it because even if it causes him pain, that pain he needs to feel. And whether he avoids it or not is up to him. But me saving him from that is not the answer. So it was an act of mercy. I mean, I guess. I mean, I don't. That's not the right word either. And I often have words escape me, and it's frustrating. But anyway, it was an act of kindness, and I did it mostly for me. Don't get me wrong. This because otherwise my empathy would be in charge. I did it for me to free myself from this last little bit of a personal connection with him because that's what I want for myself. I want this palette completely clean for whatever this future has in store for me. I don't want anything residual in my energy that is going to be a barrier for me being wide open to whatever's coming next. So I said in my last podcast that the universe is working to sweep out this old energy, and I identify it as the energy stuck in the corners that maybe I can't reach. That the universe comes in, and it was described as on a white horse sweeping this energy out of my body so I can be prepared for what's coming next. And I'm still in this transformative or transformational or transitional agent energy. So this is the time to do it. And this may be why I had this physical kind of feeling of illness. And it's the same ebb and flow. And I have to remember the moon ebbs and flows. The moon starts full and then it wanes all the way to half and then it starts to wax to full again. And this is the ebb and flow of the moon. The sun comes in and out. Not technically, and we rotate away from it, but the experience we get is in and out or on and off. And the ocean is the best example. The waves, they come in and they come out. It's a breath of life. It's something we all have to experience. So even in this elevated energy, I still feel this sadness, and I don't know that I will continue to feel it, or if that was the last of it, or what. I guess I'll report when I have something to report. But it's just kind of amazing, and it's ingenious, and it's fascinating that in this new energy, I'm still able, or still not, maybe not able, but our body still does what our body does. And even though I've gotten rid of most of this weight out of my body, when it's needed, when it's necessary, which I imagine will be intermittently through the rest of my life, this is the mechanism, the natural mechanism that we have, the natural tool that we have in our tool belt that we don't have to learn how to use. Well, I take that back. We have to allow the use of it in our body, maybe is a better way to put it. Because when we avoid our feelings, we avoid this natural process. And the newest part for me, which brought me running to the microphone this afternoon, is the heart. I didn't understand this part, but I guess the best way to put it is if you feel it going in, you have to feel it coming out. Like you can't circumvent that. So when we want to heal, but we don't want to feel, we can't heal. God, sometimes I say the weirdest things, but I think you get my drift. You have to feel it going out, coming out of your body. It's almost like you let it in that way, it has to come out that way. It's the only way in, the only way out. So when we allow somebody into our hearts, we we either have a positive experience and that permeates our body and becomes a part of our elevation, because love elevates us. It rises us above our lower selves. That's what love does. So when you're in love with someone who loves you back, and you have a reciprocal or a complementary relationship, like the love of a child or the love of a parent, that is like a natural love that makes you buoyant, of course, unless it's toxic, which we certainly can do that to those relationships. But those are the ones most naturally inclined to making us buoyant. So if you equate love with buoyancy, you can see how the elevation takes place. And I refer to this as an elevation from our three-dimensional selves to our four-dimensional or five-dimensional selves, which I believe our souls are on, or above even that. So our highest version is a version of ourselves in the fifth dimension. They're no longer in this lower vibrational energy that is capable of this energetic chaos, if that makes sense. So when we're elevated by love, we are naturally buoyant. And when we're buoyant, we are in the energy or the natural flow of our lives. And that natural flow takes us through our lives where we're meant to go without, um, we don't struggle in it, because we're loved and we trust. You know what I'm saying? It's when that love turns toxic that it becomes a weight in our body. And then we go from being buoyant to being slammed down into the concrete. And unless we process this weight and we allow ourselves to feel it, and then allow it to leave us in an emotion, whether it's anger or sadness or I can never think of more. Whatever emotion is triggered by the feeling. So it starts as an energetic, let's call it a vortex in our guts, because this is our solar plexus. This is our body's brain, or our soul's brain, and this is the brain that is interested in cleansing this body, so this body can be a receptacle uh, for light, which is love. So the light I'm referring to comes from the source, or you can say God, you can say the God body, you can say the prime creator, which is the source of all life. Whatever you identify that to be, please own that. It's up to you. It doesn't have to be any particular thing. The way I envision it is just a collection of souls that are benevolent. So there's this love in the universe, and I believe there is a prime creator, or one source of this love. I have no idea what it is, but I do believe that. I don't think it's a God. I think that God is an image that we is useful to us as humans, for us to connect to, and for us to pray to, and for us to wish to, or whatever. But I don't believe that there's a God, quote unquote. I believe there's an energy source, or a prime creator of energy somewhere out in the universe that is an intelligence that we could not comprehend. And I think it's an intelligence that most intelligent life, and I'm talking about light beings, cannot comprehend. So, we are all created in the image that for the prime creator, but we're not all humans. And this really widens your perception of life. We're not all humans. We might be an alien. And an alien is just a life form that isn't from Earth. So it doesn't have to ignite your fear. An alien is just something we don't understand. And if you really think about it, there's aliens in the sea. We're researchers, people who research this, God, I can't think of what they're called. People who work undersea and discover new life forms. Those life forms are for our what our knowledge is. They're aliens. We don't know. We've never seen them before. Just because they're in the sea doesn't mean that they're not an alien. I mean, my point is, not to go too far off track, is that the prime creator, or the creator of all life, is something we can never understand, because we're not made to understand it. Otherwise, we would want to be it. You know what I mean? And we wouldn't focus on the life that we're living. And the same reason we're not in our 5D energy, or our highest dimensional selves, because we wouldn't engage at the 3D level. We wouldn't see the point. And I know I said this in my last session, or podcast, so I won't say it again, but I won't expand on it again. But my point is that when we elevate into this 4 or 5D energy, we free ourselves from this baggage. So the way we do that is by intentionally using this tool of our feelings, that translates to an emotion that comes out of our body with, you know, on a wave of energy. So if you think of it that way, this is energy stuck in your body that your solar plexus, or your soul, or your body's brain wants out. So it causes a little vortex of energy that starts to swim up through your torso and into your chest. And I know, if you think about it, you know this feeling. It might be a feeling of dread, or it might be a feeling of fear. If you allow yourself to really investigate it's probably something in your body that needs to come out. So if there's not a stimuli, or you're not being chased by a werewolf, or you're not in a haunted house, you can pretty much trust that it's not fear or dread. So if you're sitting alone, and this may be something that scares you, is sitting alone too long, and you start to feel things, suppress the need to get up and do something else to deflect from this, because that's what we do. We busy ourselves to the point where we can't feel anything. We are like puppies. We run until we fall down, and then we sleep, and we wake up, and we run again and chase our tails. We don't understand the quality of life that we're missing out on when we avoid our feelings, because we are so afraid of that door that leads to nowhere, And told this story a long time ago about the haunted house where I was stuck at this door and I had these people behind me and I was so afraid to go through it because I didn't want to be afraid anymore. I was 13 years old or whatever. And then of course I got pushed into the door. I had to open it. It was the friggin' parking lot. There was nothing scary left. And I felt so silly. I'm not saying it's going to feel that way, but the point I'm making is if you just allow yourself to work through that fear of feeling, you can allow this natural process to take place. And the first few times it may be very eventful, but you're going to be fine. I mean, I would recommend having somebody you care about, maybe at arm's length or at a phone call away. I did this completely alone. But I did this with an understanding that I needed to do this. So I was isolated. I mean, it was COVID. I couldn't go anywhere. I lived alone. I was alone. And I cried sometimes for hours. But I always had that, and I said this before, I always had that moment or two of clarity and peace that my soul was saying, okay, time out, take a breath. This is where you're going, reminding me that I had a purpose in doing this, showing me my future. So if we allow this process to take place, this is so funny. I still am marveling at this whole thing that I'm writing this article about the power of emotions and I have this episode. It's so friggin' cool. And almost every time I do a podcast, it's tied to an article now, which is it's kind of the same thing. It's almost like this synchronistic process is taking place and I didn't even really see it before, but now I see it, this pattern. But anyway, I digress. What I wanted to keep on the subject is that when you allow yourself to stop and really start to feel, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. Your soul is not going to let you die. if you let me put it this way, if you are in a situation where you start to feel things, your soul's ready for you to feel them. If you're not, you won't. How about that? Is that fair? So I can use my ex-husband as an example, and I don't know if this is true or not, so forgive me, but when I left him, he was still in this very heavy energy and his ego was running the show. So if he's still in that energy, he's not ready to feel anything. He won't feel anything. Until his soul's ready, he won't. So if you're alone and you usually go have a drink or you usually go, to see that person who you don't really care for, or you do that commitment that you don't care about anymore, but it keeps you out of the house, or you are beholden to some construct or belief or idea that you don't care about, that you do just to pass time. These are your opportunities to really stop and feel what your body needs you to feel in order for you to start to purge the baggage out of yourself. And I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist. I am a real life human being who is reporting, my experience from the front lines. And I'm not special in any way other than I want to report it. I mean, use my experience as an example of what's possible. And, we're all different and we're going to process things differently. And our outcomes may be different, but it's all the same process. It's all the same. And maybe we need to start, support groups for people who process their feelings. I mean, this is really something that needs to happen in order for us to awaken. And when we awaken, we allow ourselves to evolve. So it's not just a barrier to feeling. It's not just a barrier to personal growth. It's a barrier to the evolution of mankind. And I'm not going to say that. I'm not saying that lightly. The next article I'm working on is called Manifestation. And it's about how we create our own reality through what we believe and what we think. And this is a whole nother podcast, and I'm pretty sure the next one will probably be about it. I don't know if I get the article done or get it at least to a point where I can talk about it. but it's already got a masthead. It's already started because it's something that keeps coming up. And I've learned that when something starts to come up, I just write it down. And that way I don't have to think about it. And when the time is right, it comes and gets me and I write about it and I talk about it. And this is the energy that I'm in. I trust explicitly, or is it implicitly? I always get that wrong. Implicitly? Anyway, I completely trust this universal process that's going on in my body now that I've cleared it of all this weight. My soul team can speak to me clearly. My higher self can give me epiphanies and revolutionary ideas. They can speak through me right now. Sometimes I listen to these podcasts and I'm like, where did that come from? It's really beautiful. I channel them sometimes, and I've been told that I'll do that, and that's only just starting. But my point is, I become this like different kind of body or instrument. I'm no longer a vessel that carries weight and baggage. I'm a vessel that collects data and information and shares it and experiences this incredible waves of energy that inform me, that carry me, that keep me, that make me buoyant. And I mentioned before that, buoyancy is love. And love is light that comes from the prime creator or the universe or the source of life. So if you picture, and I'm learning to do this now, so I won't talk about it too much. When I meditate, which is something I've always had trouble doing, I think I think about a white light coming down from the universe into my crown chakra or my head and through my body and through all of my energy chakras, which we have, I think, 8 of them. Only 5 are in the body. And I don't know a lot about this. I don't really make an effort to learn because I don't need to. It's not about knowing things that I can regurgitate. It's just about the knowing in the body. So I can report on it, but I don't have to. It's not my job to to be a technical speaker. It's not about that. It's not about the learning of your brain. It's about the knowing in your body. So we have these 8 energy centers, and this life light, this light, this light that comes from the prime creator, the source of life, is energy that is always beaming onto this earth, and it's always beaming onto us humans. But our receptivity is what's missing. So when we just use our imaginations to imagine this white light coming into our bodies and healing us and rejuvenating us, this is the power of manifestation. This is the power of using our imagination to create health in the body. This is the power of our thoughts, and most of them are subconscious. This is the part we have to pay attention to. The subconsciousness of our thoughts is what drives the quality of our lives. And I don't want to get too far into this because this is another podcast, but my point is what we think and what we imagine is what our reality becomes. We are our own prime creators in that respect. So when we take the time to cleanse ourselves of this weight, which unfortunately causes us to feel heavy, and in that heavy energy, um, we allow more heavy energy to come. It's like you attract what you are. You are what you eat. So if you eat meatballs every day, you become a meatball. I mean, it's the same thing. You are what you feel. You are what you think. And if you're not aware of your feelings, you are taking a very big risk because you are allowing your feelings to dictate your outer life. Just because you're not acknowledging them doesn't mean they don't have power. And I think anybody who has been down and out understands what I'm saying. And that's all of us, right? It all has power, whether we acknowledge its power or not. So you're manifesting whether you want to or not. So your choice is either process what's in your body or suffer it because it manifests whether you want it to or not. So when we talk about manifestation, it's such a like a it's like such a it's a subject that's so hard to wrap your head around because it has nothing to do with your head. It's something you just have to know with your body. That when you allow yourself to be unburdened with what we carry, we become we feel differently. Okay, let's start there. When we get rid of our heavy feelings, we feel lighter. When we feel lighter, we feel optimism that things are possible in our life, and then we start to feel good, and then because we have this optimistic good feeling, which is most of the time now, we start to generate that feeling in our body. That energy generates, and then it calls out into the universe that same energy. Does that make sense? So when we hold on to this energy, it is not only to our detriment, but it's the reason why it's to the detriment of the universe is because think of us collectively. When we collectively feel bad, we are inviting the universe to just pummel us with more of the same. And it's expressed in every way, shape, and form in our lives. Look at the state of the government. Look at the state of humanity. This is accumulation of pain and fear that is calling more pain and fear into our world. It's not just me, it's all of us together. This is the freight train of pain that I referred to in the last podcast and in the article I'm writing. It's a freight train of pain and anguish that turns our world in a direction that is not good for any of us, including this earth. Look at the upheaval and the uprising that's going on in this world because people are awakening at such fast rates now because the earth is elevating. This is that natural elevation that we need to assist. And we do it by allowing our bodies to do what our bodies are made to do. We are healing the world when we heal ourselves. Not to mention the bevy of blessings and abundance that we experience because of it. So I want to just make that, I can only speak of my own experience, but if we don't fear our feelings and we don't run from them and create a construct of our life around protecting ourselves from them, and you know what I'm talking about, we don't sit with ourselves without some sort of comforting aid. Television, alcohol, food, toxic relationships, medication, all the things we do to soothe ourselves because our ego doesn't know how to do it. So our ego's only solution is to pick something up to make me feel better. That's why the ego, again, is not equipped to heal the body. It doesn't know how. It only inadvertently brings more pain. It doesn't mean to. It's just not equipped to do anything else. Again, we either use our brain as a tool, which is managed by our energy, our soul, or we allow it to dictate our lives, which it just runs us into walls. And we run around with bloody noses and we don't know why. So, the point of this whole podcast was to talk about the heart center. We connect with others through our heart. We love through our heart. So we have to feel through our heart. And we don't mind the feeling going in, do we? It feels good, it's warm, it's fuzzy, it's beautiful, it's reciprocal, it's elevating. But when it becomes toxic and it isn't properly processed, it becomes a toxicity in our body. And it inhibits us from living. It inhibits us from enjoying the life that's meant for us, which is a buoyant life in the stream of our soul's energy, which there's no struggle, there's no concern, there's no distrust. You have that childlike wonder back because you know the universe is holding you. You're in the cradle of the universe. You are held by the universe because the universe is holding us all. We're just struggling so hard against it that we feel alone and isolated. We don't understand the power of our bodies and our energy, so we avoid it at all costs because we don't want to feel anything. I can tell you as one subject matter to another potential subject matter, test subject, I should say. You'll be fine. Surround yourself with people who truly care about you, not the ones who say they do. And you know who I'm talking about. Give yourself time and space. And the most important thing is compassion. You don't judge yourself. You don't have an agenda with yourself. You don't fix yourself. All that happens automatically. Your soul does all that. You don't have to do it. I didn't do any of that. I went into this completely naked. And yes, I had a unique situation. Not everyone's going to have the same type of catalyst into this as I did. But maybe you don't have to. I don't know. I've never experienced it any other way. Maybe you don't have to be in trauma to do this. Maybe you can just have an intention to love yourself and to free yourself of all that burdens you. Maybe you do it for a loved one. Maybe you do it for your child so you can set an example. That was a big motivator for me. My daughter's 32 years old, and I want to show her what's possible in this life. And that at 59 years old or 58, when this happened to me, I didn't shrink into a corner. I wanted to show her that I had the power to not only change my life, but to elevate myself to a place that I never dreamed I would go. And I don't know yet where I'm going. I'm in this transitional phase. I have no idea what's coming for me, but I know one thing for sure: it is beautiful and it is abundant and it is joyful. There's no more pain on my agenda. There's no more karmic lessons in my calendar. So I'm just, I just want to encourage you that if you have the inclination, I mean, work through the fear, talk to somebody, have somebody in a support, position if you need them. I didn't have anyone. I'm not saying you shouldn't need that. But you have to do it with love. You have to do it with love. You have to love yourself. You can't judge yourself. You can't say, well, when I, lose enough weight or when I make enough money or when I, meet the right person, I can do that. Then I'll be in the right frame of mind. No, that's not how it works. You're just going to sabotage all that. You're never going to reach your ideal weight. Never. And if you do, you're going to put it back on. How about that? Let me save you the trouble. It's not how it works. You don't get those positive effects without this cleansed center, without this powerful center. If you do, they're temporarily enjoyed and then they're lost again. And I know you know what I'm talking about. I'll tell you again, I lost over 30 pounds. I didn't lose weight. I didn't use my willpower. It was part of the cleansing. So no agenda. You just love yourself and you say, I'm going to do this for me or for my child or for whoever you need to, but do it when you're ready. And if you're not ready, don't beat yourself up, because the chances are if you go try it and it doesn't work, your soul is preparing you. Otherwise, you wouldn't even be listening to me talk. So, it's not up to me what you do at all. My only position here, or my only intention, is to share with you what I've done. If you're inclined, go for it. If you're not, then don't beat yourself up. The time isn't right yet. And maybe it won't be in this lifetime. Maybe it'll be your next lifetime. I don't know. It's not up to me. It's honestly not up to you either. When you're inclined, you'll do it. It's as simple as that. And we can't beat ourselves up, because that's counterintuitive to what this whole process is. It's about self-love. So just to, I realize I'm going long on these podcasts. It's so weird how long they're going, but I think I just want to kind of revisit this topic head, which is the heart. is I realize today as I'm going through this like melancholy and this understanding that this is empathy, this is compassion, and it's no longer something that I need to suffer with. I'll always feel it, but I don't have to suffer with it anymore. That's changed, but I obviously still need to. This needs to come out of my body. So the stop at my heart is something that I noticed. I think I described it as just a feeling coming into your chest and then coming in as an emotion and then out of your body on a wave of energy. I didn't really identify it as your heart. It's your heart. It was my heart. So this is the energetic broom and the power of your emotions. This is what I want to leave you with. Your emotions are part of a systematic process that your body naturally has to cleanse you of toxic energy in your body. It starts as a rumination in your gut. It's an upheaval or a rising of energy. And this is not your brain evoking this or invoking this. This is your soul. It comes up through your belly, and you might get a test one or two, and you might have a little bit of an event, and you might get the taste of it, whatever your soul wants you to experience. But for me, it's an energy that starts as a little bit of movement, and it's like a discomfort, like almost like I feel like I don't feel good. And then I notice it coming up into my torso, and it starts, ruminating in my chest back and forth, and it starts to feel bad. Like I still feel kind of like I'm like I don't feel good, like physically, like I don't want to say I'm going to get sick. It's not like a physical thing, like I have to purge something physically. It's like I just start to not feel good, like my energy drains. Like I start to feel tired and I sit down and I realize there's a process taking place. And then it comes up into my heart and it starts to cause an emotion. So I skipped a step. The energy comes up through my chest and it starts as a feeling. So the feeling comes up, and that feeling might be sadness, or it might be anger, or it might be uh, melancholy, like I had today. It could be any one of the many feelings that we can have. And then that feeling rises up into your heart. And this is where the emotion starts to take form. And that emotion is either going to be crying or yelling or screaming or anger, whatever it is. But this is the wave of energy. So this um, vehicle is the energy that comes from your gut through your torso into your chest and then your heart and then out your mouth. And it's also out through your tears and your sweat. So when you cry, you're expelling this energy. When you scream or moan and you make a verbalization of some sort or a noise, this is that tribal sound that comes out of your body that carries this negativity or this toxins out of your body. So it's a broom. It's like the emotional broom. It comes up through your body as a wave of energy, and it has to be expelled. So if you don't ever allow it past that first stage and you push it back in your body, it stores deeper. If you don't allow it past that second stage where it comes up as discomfort and you push it back down, you're again storing it deeper. When you don't allow it in your heart because you don't want to feel the emotion the feeling evokes, you're not expelling it. So this is the body's process to expel toxins. Just think of it that way. And it comes out in your tears and in sweat. So when you're left on the floor in a pile of exhaustion, having cried your eyes out and moaned and, like a child, I mean, that's meant to be. It is not something to be avoided. I can tell you as a firsthand experiencer that let it happen. If you are inclined to allow this at all, let it happen. Chances are the first couple of times there'll be more of a minor experience that your soul will allow you to build up to it. I don't know. But just allow this natural mechanism in your body to cleanse you of this baggage that we carry, the baggage that keeps us from enjoying our lives, from growing, from evolving, from elevating into love. Love is light. Light is what comes from the source every day, beaming through the sun, beaming through the God body, beaming from God, however you want to picture it. It's fine. This energy is pummeling us every day. When we allow it in, we are assisted by the universe. And this process becomes like automated. And I don't know how to explain it any better. And maybe in the next podcast, if it's about manifestation, we'll talk about it then when I've had some time to really pin down these knowings or whatever they are. But for now, I just want you to just be left with knowing that your body is equipped to heal you. It takes your soul, though. Your soul is a part of you that is your engine that runs this body, that lives this life. We are just the facilitator of it. If you can think of yourself as a dual being, as a human being with a brain and an ego and all these physical traits and characteristics and abilities, and an energetic body of this soul, of this otherworldly being that is animating this body, it's easier to see the dichotomy. It's easier to see how you are assisted by your light body or your energetic body, your love body. And if we allow our brain to become a tool instead of a dictator, and I don't know how else to put that with more emphasis or less dramatic, but I need the emphasis. If we allow that transition from a human, identifying myself as a human with a soul, and identifying yourself as a soul with a human, it might help flip that script where you can get the perspective you need to see what's going on inside of you and harness it. Harness this. This is the power that we came to earth with. It's the power we disconnected from when we saw ourselves as a sentient being, when we saw ourselves as separate from the whole. That's what consciousness is. Remembering that we are a part of everything and we are not separate. And when you remember that and your life reflects it, you live unconditionally loving. I do have a new article also called Consciousness that this is all documented in. I just actually uploaded it 2 weeks ago, I think. It's one I've been working on a while. But consciousness is just remembering what we knew before we were born, that we are part of the source energy, that we are light and we are love. And in that understanding, that consciousness, we live differently. But again, I just want you to trust that you are a soul running a human vehicle. And once you allow yourself to kind of relax into that, you can start to engage with the soul engine and you can start to utilize these mechanisms. And trust the universe, who is always holding you, collectively holding you. You are never alone. That's why I feel this incredible power in my gut. That's why I'm not afraid to say whatever comes out of my mouth. It's why I have no fear of living my life anymore, especially fear of other people's opinion of it. And that's what I'm meant to do. So I'm going to leave you with that because it's getting long, of course. But I just want to thank you. I have such immense gratitude for anyone who's listening to this because you're helping me do what I'm supposed to do. And if anyone's listening, that just makes it really, really rewarding. And I just want to encourage you to trust your soul, to trust your gut, your intuition, your cosmic brain, because it will never steer you wrong. Never. The problem is we don't trust it. We second guess it, and then we get into trouble. So, that's another benefit to this is you start to trust your intuition, and your intuition takes you through your life with no struggle at all. So let me leave you with that, the image of yourself as two beings. So close your eyes for just a second. Just humor me. And picture yourself on the right-hand side as a human being. Look in your best. Look in your nicest, however you want to picture yourself. And then picture yourself on the left as just an illuminated blue light. I guess illuminated light is kind of redundant, but as a blue being with no real form, just a blue being of just a slight, just you can just barely make out a human form, but it's just a light being in blue. That is your higher self. That is your true self on the left. Now take your two hands and put them next to the human on the outside and the light being on the outside, and then push the two together. Just push them together. And now look at yourself with the blue emanating from your eyes and from your mouth and from all of your pores. That is who you are. You are a human vehicle inhabited by this beautiful light being. And if you can think of yourself that way, you're beautiful, aren't you? Oh, God, I'm still got my eyes closed, so forgive me. I love to think about that. So, anyway, let me leave you with that and thank you again profusely for listening. And I cannot wait to speak to you again soon. Thank you. Bye bye.